Yeah, like I said, I was really reluctant to join Stella, let alone any household. After I graduated from high school, I served with Net Ministries for 2 years, and I was just felt totally drained of being social and talking to people and community. Like it just drained me completely. And so I was totally just turned away from household life, from any sort of community, any sort of sisterhood. I was just kind of burnt out. And I watched one by one all my friends, join households, and I was the black sheep that didn't join or do anything with anybody. Um, and honestly, it was what drew me to Stella was the covenant talking about being a light. Like that was always a driving force in my life, was being a light of Christ. And I remember reading Stella's covenant and I was like, oh, I love this thing. However, I don't want to be in a household. And I feel like for 4.5 years, I lived out the covenant on my own. And I had wonderful friendships, don't get me wrong, but I just, maybe I wanted to rebel, maybe, I don't know, but I just stayed away. Like I remember people always asking me to come to Lord's Days and stuff. And I was like, I'm okay. No, no, thanks. And then finally my senior year, I said yes. And before my senior year, my junior year, I went to Austria in the fall, and there was probably 5 Stella girls there, and they really started to warm my heart to the idea of joining a household, and really set me on fire. Started a kindling for Stella. So yeah, I know a lot of you are twinkles, and everything has been put on hold for you. And whether you're already a sister in Stella or just an intent, by the virtue of our baptism, we have been given this call to be a light. Like if you think back to maybe you can't think back to your baptism, but if you've ever seen a baptism, like we light a candle for the new Christian from the light of the Easter candle. And, the godparents make a promise to help them hold the light of Christ and shine the light of Christ in their life. And we're given this command and this call to be lights in the world. And I was looking at our covenant the past couple days as I was watching the 2 previous talks about the covenant, about our covenant with Jesus and Mary and with one another. And I counted how many times that it references shining or light or anything that has to do with being a light of Christ. And it's like over a dozen times. And I've never realized that. Like it never hit me how many times our founding sisters drove this point home, and that we're all called to shine so very much. And I remember during grad week, my senior year, a couple of my household sisters wanted to go get tattoos. I didn't at the time, but I was like, I'll go and support them. I'll hold your hand because I know it's going to be painful. And one of them got a line from Stabat Mater that we are encouraged to pray and enter into, especially this Holy Week. And she had tattooed on her ribs, make my soul to glow and melt. And it comes from the line, make me feel as thou hast felt, make my soul to glow and melt with the love of Christ, my Lord. And I've always loved that. I thought it was so beautiful, like, oh, glow and melt, that's so cool. And looking at it now in Holy Week and thinking about what it means to be a light, especially in our really uncertain world right now that we live in, it made me think about, when we're called to shine, when we are to be lights of Christ, that line from that prayer talks about make me feel as thou hast felt. Like how did Mary feel? How did Jesus feel? And it made me think that, what does this have to do with being a light? Like, I feel like so much of my life, I thought, being a light is being joyful, and being a light is is being happy and like drawing everyone to Christ through how you live your life. And that, while that is true, like that line in that prayer, make me feel as thou hast felt, like Mary had feelings. She had emotions. Like we read in scripture all about, you know, she was worried about Jesus in the temple. We have the sorrows of Mary. She was sorrowful. Jesus experienced a wide range of emotions. You know, he was angry. He flipped tables in the temple. He was sad when Lazarus died. He cried. He wept. He had joy. He had pain. He was anxious in the garden, you know? And what I kind of drew from all this past week is that, you know, to be a light is not just to be joyful. It's not just to be so happy and different. Like I feel like we're always told, like, you know, your life should be so different that people would be curious and want to know, like, why do you live your life this way? Like, and that's like an opening to share about your faith. But like, I feel very strongly now that like being a light is being honest, and being a light is being authentic. Like Jesus drew others to himself through his authenticity. You know, he drew others to himself through humility. He was real. And I feel like to be a light is to be like authentic and to be who you were created to be. You know, if we're really going to be lights, we need to be who we are, like who God made us to be. As Catherine Sienna says, you know, if you're who you're meant to be, you'll set the world on fire. Like you will be a light if you're who you were meant to be. And what is it? St. John Bosco, he talks about, you know, bringing the youth to himself. It's to drawing them in. It's to let them know that they are truly loved. And that's how we're lights to other people, is to be authentic and to like let other people know that they are authentically, honestly, unabashedly loved. Not just by us, but by the Lord. And I know like on campus, it's probably a little easier than it is for all of us right now to be lights, because, you know, on campus, you're surrounded by your friends and your sisters and household. On campus, the sacraments are everywhere, and they're like nowhere right now. You know, there's prayer and share. We have adoration, a holy hour every week. There's rosary, and, you know, there's all these opportunities that make it a little easier to be a light. But now everything is so different, and everything has just shifted in our world and in our lives, and it's a little bit harder to shine. It's a little bit harder to be a light when, you know, you're kind of stranded. Like my husband is amazing. He's so great. We have never spent this much time together, like because of the nature of his job. And, you know, when I was a teacher, youth minister, and now being at home, like we have never spent more than probably 3 weeks in a row together. And like, we've never gone to bed that often together because, you know, he's gone on tour or I'd be teaching or whatever. And it's so strange and surreal to like wake up to him every day now because it's been like, I guess 8 weeks or 6 weeks since he's been home completely. And last night, so we have a 6-week-old, and he's sleeping in our room in his crib, the baby, not my husband. And my husband's awesome, John. He's great because we're total team. He gets up, he changes the baby, he gives me the baby. I feed the baby, put the baby down. He might put the baby down for me. Like we work together. It's like a well-oiled machine. And last night, I think we were both just really tired because we're working our way through the Marvel Universe canon. So we're watching like a 3-hour movie every night. So we were really tired. And the baby got up at like a weird time last night. And my husband just kind of stumbled out of bed, like walked all the way around our bed to pick up the baby, take him to change him. on our dresser. And I don't know if any of you have like babysat a newborn, or if you have a newborn in your family, or you've been around a newborn, but they gassy, and they make total messes. And so my husband, he didn't turn the light on, which I thought was really weird. He normally turns like a lamp or something on, but he did all this in the dark. And I hear him, I'm like slowly like coming out of a haze and like waking up. And I hear him like, oh my gosh. And he's like shocked and stunned. And I can kind of see it's really dark in the room because there's no light on. And I hear like just an explosion from my son's butt. And my husband is like cursing and he can't see anything. And so I grabbed my phone and I turned the flashlight on and like, lit up the room because it was so dark. And immediately, like my son who was crying, my husband who was freaking out, they both calmed down when the light came on. And I was thinking about that today because like they were worried, they were stressed, they were a disaster. And what happened when I turned the light on? There was like peace and there was calm and there was comfort. And like if we're called to be lights, like we are called to be that comfort, we're called to bring that peace to the darkness around us, to our families' lives, to our neighbors, to our friends, to our sisters, to our school, to everyone we come in contact with. Like we can be that peace and we can be that comfort in a dark place. And now more than ever, I feel like being a light is not only necessary, but it's difficult at times. And I was talking to a household sister yesterday about this. I asked her, like, if you could say like what it's like to be, what it means to be a light, like what would you say? And she said, being a light is going hard where God has placed you. And we've all been displaced. Like y'all on campus have been displaced and are now home with your families a lot earlier than you anticipated. Our lives are rooted and displaced. Like I am a homeschool mom and I thought, oh, this quarantine will be fine because it's already our life. Like no big deal, but I can't go anywhere. Like I can't take my kids to Chick-fil-A, and I love me some Chick-fil-A and I love to let them run around in the play area. Like we can't meet up with our friends, and like all of our lives have been interrupted drastically, and we're at a standstill. And we're called to like be where we are. Like we're called to be in this moment in history. Like God has placed us where we are for a specific reason. And there's a very special way that we can be a light to wherever we are. And my household sister, Allie, she said, you have to continue to show up to be a light. You have to acknowledge, what did she say? You have to acknowledge the ugliness and the suffering around you, and acknowledge in an honest way how it is right now and how you thought it would be, and you need to dance within the difference of that. And if we're going to be lights, like we have to have a light heart, we have to have deep love, and we have to keep our eyes to heaven. Like how perfect is that for Holy Week? Like this is the lentiest Lent that ever lented in the history of Lents. And how perfect it is that we are like, we're called to have our eyes to heaven, especially this week. Like as we prepare to celebrate the passion, death, and resurrection of our Lord, like we are experiencing our own almost like societal death in a sense. And it's difficult and it's hard and it's weird, and like maybe things are like ultra normal for you, or things are kind of just boring maybe, and it's kind of mundane because of this great interruption of the coronavirus. But